Evening, everybody. Well, there's some things happening in the Twitterverse that are worth reporting on. So, and really, this is kind of a Maxime Bernier Twitter roundup and some cleanup of some things I've been reporting on earlier in the week. Italy and the EU is coming to a head. My favorite Italian, I believe, finance minister, but I could be wrong. Immigration minister is at it again, and he's got the backing of his prime minister, so that's good. So, but first. The most important aspect of this video, get out and sign this petition. Bill Tufts is tweeting this out, and a friend of mine actually mentioned something that I missed in the first round, but here's the tweet from Mr. Tufts. Quote, last night at 5:01 p.m. a petition was posted to stop the compact on migration. It needs 500 names to be read in Parliament. Let's there by noon. That's probably just a Twitter thing. Help us out. And a link to the tweet, and then a bunch of @replies to get a bunch of people talking about it. I have not retweeted yet, but I will. Not that matters all that much. I don't have a huge following. Thanks, Twitter. Not a big deal. But it was Maxime Bernier who is the sponsor, is the supporter of this bill. So Maxime Bernier retweeted this, and it says, show Trudeau he is wrong. Sign the immigration petition for Canada to withdraw from the UN Compact on Global Migration. Sponsored by Maxime Bernier. Click sign, and make sure you do the confirmation email, acknowledgement, and then you're done. So you have to click through, sign it, and then you'll get an email, and then you have to click on the link in the email. It's done to protect your privacy, or it's done to make sure they get fewer responses. But one way or the other, click that link in your email. It's worth it. It's worth it. Man, if we lose our sovereignty, I don't think there's any going back on that. And if you've been paying attention to how long Brexit has taken, they voted for a hard Brexit 3 years ago when we voted for Justin Trudeau, right? Unbelievable. Or they were talking about it with Trudeau, and then happened right after, and then Trump, right? It's insanity, and they're not going to be let go of easily by the EU. So here is the actual petition. Link is in the description, and I'll show you. There it is. Sponsor, Maxime Bernier, the People's Party. And so right there, again, shows me if Mr. Scheer can't take a solid position on something, I'm glad that we have a federal leader who is willing to take a position on something like this. Thank you again, Mr. Bernier. Thank you. So here's the tweets that Maxime has been putting out. He's been talking about climate change, been talking about carbon tax, that's been the top of mind for everybody in Canada right now. We're being taxed for carbon. So here's Max's take on it. Quote, everyone is against pollution. Most Canadians don't want another tax and don't believe it's going to have any effect on the climate. So how do you sell a carbon tax? You call it a pollution pricing system. Typical liberal manipulation. Don't fall for it. And he links to Justin Trudeau's tweet. Maxime Bernier again today at 2:16 p.m. Quote, it seems many people, including some journalists, really don't know that CO2 is used in photosynthesis. This La Presse article, for example, says that I, quote, claim that CO2 is food for plants, as if this were controversial. It's not controversial. CO2 is absolutely food for plants, and they pump it into greenhouses to increase all sorts of index things for plants. I don't know. I don't grow many plants, but, I know that they pump CO2 into greenhouses. And this is Maxime Bernier again at 4:30 today. It says, quote, one of two. If the air feels just a bit fresher, it may be because the trees are making a comeback. Despite a lot of bad news on climate, our planet has become measurably greener, as seen from space, and that points to a way out of the climate crisis. 2. Almost all of the regreening of the post-2003 years was caused, whether through explicit policy or happy accident, by countries increasing their levels of urbanization, their proportion of commercial agriculture, or their rate of economic growth. So he's saying that actually what's happening, what's measurably happening, what we can see happening, is our planet greening. Things aren't all bad. Maybe the media is selling us a story. I still wish we had a picture of any of our politicians loving Canada this much, not Justin Trudeau. I don't want Justin Trudeau to hug a Canadian flag. We'd have to do something with the flag. I feel like the flag would have experienced it differently than Trudeau. But I love that this image exists. So anyway, moving on. And I love... No, I can't get into that right now. Okay. Quebec wants to ban or expand religious symbol ban blocking Muslim garments in civil service. So there is they want to move quickly on the secularism law. So this is a double-edged sword. On one side, it prevents head coverings in public spaces, which I think is a positive thing. On the other side, it further removes and reduces the potential for Western Christianity Christianity influenced Western modern law and influenced all of our thinking in a way that is immeasurable. It's in our bones. It's in our country is Western because of Christianity, right? Like it's that straight a line. So I'm not saying that we should keep God in our government in a way that is modern, because modern, it's popular to make fun of religion in a way that hasn't been okay for a really, really long time. Like, I think the generation that grew up with me, and I could be projecting, I'm not sure, but there was not a disrespect for God, but a not forced respect unless you were a part of a church, and more are less and less part of a church. So I'm not trying to shoehorn Christianity into government, but in Quebec especially, and part of the reason that they've maintained such a strong culture, even comparing them to France. I mean, I'm sure France is jealous of Quebec's strong French heritage and culture at this point in time. But because of that, and because they've maintained some very strong traditions, removing religion, and a lot of my strong opinion on this is a lot of the reading I've been doing on how to destabilize a society. One of the first tenets is remove religion from God, like from the schools and from the influence of the people, right? So I have not been a religious person until recently, and I'm learning. So if I offend anybody, I'm not intending to. But my intention here is not to offend. It's just to look at our history and look at our modern history. And the modern history of ripping religion out of absolutely everything isn't making us stronger. And that's concerning. So I want to preserve Canada for Canadians. And Canada for Canadians is, if you want to be Christian, you can practice that. If you want to be Hindu, you can practice that. If you want to privately practice your religion to satisfy your own needs, that is absolutely acceptable in Canada. If you want your religion to dominate Canada in a legal way and in a societal way and in a replacement kind of way, then I don't want you in Canada. So I think there's the line. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Canada is supposed to be multi-religious. You don't have to be Christian. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is being respectful of everybody's religion and being inclusive enough to allow the permeation of that tradition within the governmental structures. So, man, that was a lot to say. Let's talk about Italy, why don't we? Hashtag Italy will not change even a comma in draft budget rejected by the EU. Salvini, it's terrible. I can't say his name at all, but here's the news. And I thought, man, like, these guys are great because they're fighting for their country. And I think that is admirable. So Moscow, Sputnik, so this is Sputnik news. Italy will not change, quote, even a comment in its draft budget for next year that was rejected by the European Commission earlier this week, Italian Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini said on Thursday. Quote, as we are polite, we open the little letters from Brussels, we read them, we respond to them. They write back and we respond, but we are not changing a comma of the budget that will lead Italy to growth, Salvini said, as quoted by the ANSA news agency. So, and I don't know how reputable Sputnik News is. I'm reporting because it's in English. I just think it's an interesting standoff. I think this is bigger than people are giving it credit for. I think this is one of many standoffs that's going to happen in the next few years. And I think that the EU's luster is wearing off. I think nationalism is going worldwide. And I think people are watching Trump and seeing positive results for the United States. They've had a record couple of years. Look at their stock market. Their economy is roaring despite 6 increases by central banks for interest rate increases. It's incredible, really. It's incredible. So this isn't over. This is the beginning of this is the beginning of countries reasserting their sovereignty in the face of EU demands to, just like the United Nations for Western countries, the EU demands of more and more and more. You've taken 1 million migrants. Here's 1 million more. Here's more. And if you refuse, sorry, we're going to economically punish you. That's what Trudeau's trying to set up. And that's what Maxime Bernier is trying to stop by supporting this position. This petition. So sign it if you have a chance. If you haven't already done so, head over to the People's Party of Canada.ca. And I said in my last video, if you want to be disappointed and have an election stolen from you, do this. But that was tongue in cheek. I don't believe that. I think that Canada needs to send a clear message at the polls. And that clear message is, in my opinion, Mr. Scheer is not nearly far conservative enough, far to the right enough, conservative enough to lead our country back to keep Canada great. Because Canada is great. I feel safe here. This is a wonderful country. I want to keep it that way. I don't want to have the nightmare that Europe's dealing with. And that can come here faster than we think. Look at what Trudeau's done in 3 years, 3 short years. Who would have thought? Man, it's incredible. So, link is in the description. Check it out. The link to the petition's in the description. Make sure you check your email and hit the link. It's important. Thanks for watching. People's Party of Canada.ca. Check it out. Have a good night.